Hi, welcome back to another episode of Pushbox Banter. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kristy, filling in for Craig today.
Hi, Kristy. It's nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So today we're going to be talking about the Austrian Grand Prix. The Austrian Grand Prix is held at the Red Bull Ring. It's in Spielberg, Austria, and it's one of the shortest laps that we'll have on the calendar. It's 71 laps for the main race, 23 for the sprint. It's actually the third sprint race of the year. So super excited. 3 more sprint races to go, and lots of drama off track, lots of drama on track.
The biggest drama coming into the weekend was between Max Verstappen's dad and Christian Horner. Apparently, Joss was supposed to drive during the pre-race parade and one of the old Formula One cars, but Horner just didn't want that to happen. Even though he didn't say it out loud, somehow word got back to Joss and he decided he wasn't going to drive in the parade.
Yeah, it seems like this is a little drama that's been kind of working its way from like preseason through some of the beginning of the year, and now it's kind of become a very like public thing with Joss basically saying, "Hey, I've had it with Horner." So I wonder, what got back to him exactly, but yeah, there's supposed to be a race of, I think, champions, and he was supposed to drive one of the Red Bulls, the old Red Bulls. So didn't happen, and of course, I don't understand how someone who's actually not with the team, other than being the father of the main driver, is so involved and causing so much trouble. Well, I don't want to say trouble, but like controversy.
Just a little bit of unnecessary drama. Like I feel bad for Max because they're asking him questions about his dad and Horner during his interviews. Like he doesn't need to be thinking about what drama his dad's having before his race.
What drama
weekend.
his dad's causing, right? What's that about? There's a lot of drama there. He did kind of say, "Hey, I'm at Red Bull, and that's where I anticipate being." So, Max was kind of staying quiet for a while. So we'll see what kind of happens from there. But also some rumors with Adrian Newey.
Yeah, apparently allegedly, he might sign with Ferrari in the upcoming year.
So, yeah, there's rumors that he's going to sign up for Ferrari, or with Ferrari. He might sign up with Aston. I think Aston's trying to throw a whole lot of money his way. So we'll see how that goes. Aston, obviously, right now, I think they're moving into a new facility and trying to, they've been poaching people all over the place. So
yeah, and somebody saw that they gave Newey a tour of the new facility. So that's where the rumor started.
Oh, wow. Well, I wouldn't doubt it. And, considering Newey wants, at least from my understanding and some of the things I've read, is that he would like to stay in England. So we'll see how that pans out for both of them. And then we have some driver updates.
Yeah, speaking of Aston Martin, looks like Mr. Lance Stroll has re-signed with the team thanks to his daddy. And also Gasly re-signed with Alpine, so he's going to stay there a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I hear through the end of 2026, Gasly's going to be there. I think he's, of the French drivers on that team, I think he's the one I would keep. Ocon's a bit of a, cause a little bit of trouble. Mm-hmm. So I think they did well by kind of letting that contract run its course. We have Sainz. I don't know what the deal is with Sainz. Like, is he expecting everybody, to just wait on him or something? It seems like that's actually what's happening.
I don't know. Who's his manager?
Why is he waiting so long? It seems like the doors are closing slowly, and at this point, having been one of the hottest commodities from the beginning of the new year, like, is it something like, what is it that he's waiting for? There's rumors that he gave up the possibility of signing with Mercedes for 1 year. Like, is that a good move? Like, is it fact? I'm not sure, but it's been, it was rumored that he said no for 1 year at Mercedes. Being a, excellent driver, I would think, even if it was for 1 year, going to a higher level caliber car, having the possibility of like competing for like wins or podiums would be what I would do instead of thinking of like a 2 or 3 year contract with a lower team like Williams or Alpine or even Haas. I get it that he might be thinking of like, how do I secure my future? But talent's undeniable, right? So if he is that good and can excel at Mercedes, I don't think Mercedes would forego keeping him for another year for, like an Antonelli if he proved himself. So I think he's that caliber of driver, and going to Williams, Haas, or Alpine, I just think that's kind of
like a downgrade for
a little
him.
bit of a downgrade. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess time will tell.
Time will tell. And hopefully it's soon, because there's also a lot of other drivers that are out there. Obviously, not the same caliber as him. Esteban, Sargent, Ricciardo, Bottas, Zhou, Magnussen. Like, where are these guys going? Or is everybody just waiting for Sainz to make his move? I think that's what it is.
Maybe, possibly. That's a good outlook.
So what about Norris?
I heard he was sick a little bit this weekend. People saw him coughing, and he said he was okay.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so going into the sprint, I'd heard the same, and I don't think it affected him much. He qualified pretty high, second, only second to Max going into quali for the sprint race. And in the sprint race, he kind of lost a position to Piastri and to Max. He did a nice little dive bomb move to try to get that first position from Max, but it didn't really pan out. And I think that's as much of the drama that we saw during the sprint race, because there really wasn't a whole lot to talk about there. But other than, Max driving that Red Bull exceptionally well, and Lando doing the best to kind of keep up. I don't think that car was where it probably should have been in terms of like pace. I think the McLarens this week were lacking a little pace. And he did his best to try to catch and match Max, and it didn't seem to pan out, at least not during the sprint race. So the sprint race was a little uneventful. We had Max take that with Oscar in second and Lando in third. Piastri was right at the right place at the right time when Lando tried to overtake Max and kind of just lost momentum, and Piastri kind of took advantage of that. So good on Piastri for being right there to kind of pick up the pieces. But just when it comes to that fight between the McLarens and the Red Bulls, it just doesn't seem that Piastri has that extra edge to kind of match Verstappen, where Lando really does, even if the cars aren't completely equal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So going into the race and qualifying for the race, there's a little bit of drama there too, right?
Yeah, I believe Yuki got penalized for using a slur word.
So Yuki, I mean, he's famous for his outbursts and profanities and his language. I just want to know who taught him English.
I think he's just watching like
too much like HBO's
MTV
South Park
or something.
Yeah.
Wild and Out.
Yeah.
But he got fined 20,000 euros.
Actually, I think it was 40, but 20 of it deferred. So yeah.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen again. And he feels bad. He didn't know. If he knew, he wouldn't have said it. But English is his second language, so.
Right. We'll give him a pass.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love Yuki.
We do.
So, yeah, Yuki in his comments. So then Piastri had qualified third on the grid, but then got his track basically disqualified for track limits, I think in the sixth corner. So he went off a little bit, and it was so marginal that McLaren ended up protesting his disqualification from that, and it didn't really go anywhere. So he started at the ladder in the middle of the pack, because that happened during Q3. And Leclerc also had a pretty dismal Q3. He ran off the road a couple times, I think on 3 and 6, and he was just looking awful. Like, I wonder if there's like some sort of curse or something.
Possibly. He hasn't done very well since his big win.
Exactly. Yeah. So he comes off his win in Monaco, and then it's just kind of downhill. You know, he doesn't do anything special in Barcelona, and then here he's just kind of like trudging along. We know the car isn't as good as they expected, and maybe some of the upgrades they brought weren't really doing what they were supposed to do, but he looked pretty bad. He looked nowhere. It's like, where was he, right? Leclerc's been kind of tumbling down the championship, the driver's championship. So we'll see how that goes for him. He definitely needs to step it up because Sainz is consistently in, P3, P4,
Yeah.
P5, and for him to come off a win and be in the bottom of the grid is just not good. So during the race, oh man, this is where it gets good, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is probably the spiciest race of the season so far.
So Max, great off the line. Lando, I don't know what's going on with his starts, but it seems like every time he has that potential to be that threat, he really doesn't deliver at all. He's kind of slow off the starts, or he just can't dial in the tires or something. But it seems like he's always very slow, and it seems that Max, once he's off, he picks up like a second and a half right away. And basically the idea is like you want to stay as close as possible, and if not, like overtake as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And for Lando to be a threat, it's got to be a threat early on, because once Max is off, he's in the distance. He's gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what's going on, but that's something I think that Lando can work on. But yeah, the beginning of the race was a little bit eventful. We had Max kind of take off. Lando, again, kind of just slow off the start. Leclerc got bumped by Piastri. Piastri, as we mentioned just a little bit ago, was starting, I think, 10th, and had basically sandwiched Leclerc with Perez. So Leclerc lost some spots, got some damage to the front wing, ended up going to get his wing replaced, and kind of came out in the back, and it was more or less game over for him.
Mm-hmm.
From then. I mean, he could have come back some more, but it seemed like that was more or less it. In lap 33, we saw the Alpines battling it out, which was pretty cool. Now that Ocon is out of a drive for next year and Gasly secured his 2-year contract, we're going to see a lot more of that. In general, obviously, we'd been talking about how they've been incremental and doing like having little gains here and there throughout the season. Obviously, it's the worst season they've probably ever had, but they've incrementally been getting better, and it's nice to see them battling against each other at least. I think that's the only battle they'll have for the rest of the year, but if they can keep that up, I think they'll be and put on a good show, a good spectacle for the audience. I expect to see, basically Ocon taking off the gloves and, rolling with the punches, trying to secure a seat for next year. So we'll see what happens with that. But we know it's just not going to be with Alpine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be somewhere else. Moving on to, I know we touched on Aston, but what's going on with Fernando? It's bad, right? Like, he's disappeared.
Yeah. In the beginning of the season, he was getting some podiums up there, but now he's just at the end of the pack.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I know he had a little shunt.
He had a little shunt with Zhou at turn 3, which gave him a 10-second penalty there. So that
more or less ended his race there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Fernando, but it seems like once he secured his race seat and the car, either the car or just something, but he's kind of tumbled a little bit as well. So we'll see how that kind of progresses as we go to Silverstone and through the rest of the year. But the story of the race really was Verstappen v. Norris. Lap, what was it? 58, 59. Norris and Verstappen are not, they're not really battling it, right? They're not battling it out. They're like first and second 8 seconds apart at one point, or very close to 8 seconds. Max is struggling. They're both dealing with back markers, right? They both have back markers that are basically like on fresher tires. So they're still kind of overtaking and lapping some of these folks, but they're also kind of getting in the way, right? Max Verstappen on the radio is basically like, hey, I don't know that I can keep this up. Like, the tires are going away. He's on hards. He's struggling to kind of keep ahead of the back markers. They're on fresher tires. And obviously his fight is not with those people he's lapping, but with Norris, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes into pit and Norris responds, right? In the pit, there's a problem getting the tire off. And what should normally be like a 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.5 second pit stop kind of becomes a 6-second pit stop. And not only that, it's compounded because when Norris comes in, he can't basically take off his pit because he has to stop for like an extra second to let Norris through to go into his pit. So what was an 8-second pit stop or an 8-second gap in going into the pits kind of becomes like a 1.5 second gap. And right off the bat, it's like game on, right? You've got Norris with fresh tires, a fresh medium, and Max has some scrubbed mediums. So confidence is going to Norris for sure. Going right into the first couple turns, I think turn 3, turn 4, Max, again, kind of trying to overtake some of the back markers and trying to get ahead and stay ahead of Norris. He locks up. He's trying to dial in those tires like right away on the outlap. Usually they take it easy on the outlap, right? They want to get those tires dialed in, get them hot, get them sticky. And it's just straight from the get-go. They're just going full on. And he's damaging his tires. He like flat spots one of them right away. Norris is getting closer and closer. At one point, he basically dive bombs inside. And he does this more than once. He does it like twice, but doesn't do it really successfully. At one point, he does get ahead of Verstappen, but ends up giving the place back to Verstappen because he kind of overtook him outside of the track limits. At the same time, Norris has basically been given a black and white flag saying, hey, you've been over the track limits a few times, and he's under investigation. So for like 3 laps, right? For 3 laps, they're going back and forth. And Max is doing something super interesting. He's ahead, and he's being aggressive in his defending, but he's also like weaving. And it's something that's quite unusual to see, especially from someone, maybe it's not unusual to see from someone like Max, but he basically takes a defensive line and then weaves back and is more or less reactive to what Norris is doing under braking, which is, it's not really sporting. You usually don't do that because that's obviously how people sometimes go airborne, right? Mm-hmm. If you start swerving, like you take the inside or you take the outside, you take the middle, and you kind of keep it. You take your racing line and make that decision. But he was seeing that Norris was about to dive in, and he would kind of move reactively, and towards like lap 64. It comes to a head where he kind of Max goes to defend, Norris goes on the outside, and then Max weaves back and kind of glides back towards the outside. They touch rear wheels, both of them puncture. And at one point, going into the race, actually, they were talking about some of the interesting updates to the front wing of the McLaren. And it's got like a sticky outy bit at the front wing. And I thought for sure that that wing basically punctured his Max's wheel. But it turns out they had just touched rear wheels. Obviously the friction and stuff like that caused them to both puncture. And, Max was able to make it to the pit stops, to the pit. He gets a 10-second penalty. Norris also makes it to the pit, but he's like causing crazy damage because his wheel doesn't actually come off. It's more or less like flapping and hitting his wing, hitting his aero package, his side, and they end up retiring the car. He does end up getting a 5-second grid penalty for track limits, but super exciting. But what that caused was basically Russell to inherit the race lead with Piastri close behind and Sainz, or should I say Sainz and Piastri. Piastri ends up taking the place from Piastri takes the place from Sainz. Isn't able to really attack on Russell. Russell inherits the win, and yabba dabba doo.
Yeah, apparently it was the first race Mercedes has won in 33 races. The last one was when Russell won in Brazil in 2022.
That's right. Yeah. So that's really cool. It's definitely time. It was time. We knew that Mercedes has been doing updates and upgrades to the car. Slowly, kind of like trying to get back to form. And it was nice to see. Obviously, it's not on merit, but it's still good to push that team to gain that momentum and do some positive strides with that car, with the team. You know, obviously with Hamilton leaving and Russell kind of being the main guy there, it's good that Russell was able to get that win under his belt this season. You know, considering last season there weren't many winners. This year, it's nice to see that change, right? Especially as the season's been progressing, we've been seeing more race winners with Norris, now with Russell. So yeah, I think that was quite a spectacle. One of the every race seems to be one of the better races of the season, but definitely this one was quite a shock. Max did lose out on some points, but not all. Considering the gap he had, he still finished second. So again, punctured, got his tire changed, came out, 10-second penalty, still finished second. Still finished fifth. Like, that's incredible. That says a lot. But it also says a lot about another thing is, where was his teammate?
Where was Perez? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, considering I think Perez's main objective is to
be number two.
Well, be number two, but to pick up the pieces. He's there to clean house when Verstappen is just not able to do so. So in those moments, yeah, Perez is supposed to step in and take the win, right? Perez is nowhere to be found. Is it a Monaco curse for Perez? I don't know. Like, is it, they spent $2.5 million to fix that car after Monaco? Is it that he's just driving in a way that's super cautious to not cause any damage? Or that shunt, switch something for him where it's like, okay, life is fragile. Is it a psychological thing that it's like, okay, I'll push this car, but I can't push it to the limit because that limit is very fine, and it's a psychological thing. Like, being in a big shunt like that could do something to you. Obviously, he's been a driver forever, and maybe that's not the case, but odds are it's just he can't find the confidence to push it to the limit or to find it without overdoing it. That's probably what it is. But either way, things aren't looking good for him, considering he just signed a 2-year contract. Odds are, like, if this continues, sure, he has a contract, but that really doesn't mean anything to Team Red Bull. So I'm hoping he's able to turn it around in Silverstone, but if not for himself, then for the team, so that they can continue to be in that battle with the top three. So more to come on that. But yeah, it was an excellent race.
Yeah, it was a great race.
Yeah. So
Toto was happy.
I don't think I'd seen Toto so happy.
Never seen him smile all season. First time.
Yeah.
And I like when Russell wins because he gets to do his famous intro stance.
That's right. What's that look like?
We all know what it looks like.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. And now we go into Silverstone, and that's going to be super exciting. It's the end of a 3-race back to back to back weekend, so it's always exciting at Silverstone. The weather's always a little unpredictable. We've seen some huge impacts over there over the past couple of races, and we'll see what happens. I think the championship's kind of up in the air really now, right? Will Ferrari come back? Is McLaren, are they going to keep bringing something special? Are they going to taper away? Like, what's Norris bringing to the table? Is he going to continue to be Max's biggest challenger, or is it going to be Leclerc? Is Perez going to be there to help Verstappen? Can Verstappen continue to overdrive that car? Is he overdriving it? Is the car getting better? Is it getting worse? I don't know. Lots of questions to be answered, and I think there'll be a lot of good things to come in Silverstone. So, what are your predictions for Silverstone?
Part of me wants to say, Russell coming off his high, winning this race, and that being his home race next weekend, maybe he will come back on top, but I don't think so. I feel like there's going to be some revenge driving from both Norris and Verstappen trying to prove themselves. I don't know if their friendship is over or if Max will amend it.
What can be said about their friendship? Are we expecting them, what do we expect will happen?
I'm not sure. I guess it depends on if Verstappen will apologize to Norris, because that's what he is expecting from Verstappen. That's what he said during his post-race interview.
That's right.
So we'll see if Verstappen feels that he's in the wrong or not, though the FIA did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that he's in the wrong, and I think he was trying to make up for some of the mistakes that his team did during the pit stops and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's racing, and that's what they do, is go race, and hopefully they can go get past this. They are supposedly pretty decent friends, so...
Yeah, things happen. So I think Norris will come out on top, followed by Verstappen and Piastri.
Okay. All right, cool. So a McLaren sandwich with Red Bull in the middle. I think Verstappen's this whole weekend he looked really good. Which is surprising because, again, of how bad Perez looked. But I think Verstappen's going to take it. If he's able to take off and put 8 seconds on Norris, at some point in the race, I think he'll be able to do the same in Silverstone. Austria was such a small track, and for him to do that and dominate, especially even during the qualies, I think we'll probably see the same kind of play out in Silverstone. And I think Norris and Piastri are going to be right there. So yeah, I see Verstappen, Norris, Piastri. I'm excited for the next week. In the meantime, we'll see you next week, but follow, subscribe, comment, and leave us some good stuff. And Kristy, thanks for joining in on this episode.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Bye, guys.
Bye.